welcome to Discovering Databricks. Now we have a system that have resources. We can add different resource types in templates where we can go in and set some default values. Now it's not the most beautiful design yet, but we will get there. But there is one very important thing missing that I would like to put here on tile 4, and that is risk evaluation. So when I looked into the NIS2 compliance documentation, I noticed that there were 4 different categories of things that you need to take into account. It's your assets, and it is your systems that you're working with. It is the kind of follow-up documentation and soft information that you need to care about. And I think those 3 we have covered fairly well, because we can have in our resources, we can have both our assets and system that we work with and system we deliver to customers. And the templates is a good place to set up some default values. But now we're going to do the risk evaluation, because of course there are many risks in business and we need to kind of store them someplace. So this time we're going to see how much we can do without coding. So we're going to try to use some of the new interfaces in Databricks 25. And we're going to start by creating a table. And we're going to create a risk table, and we can automatically create a primary key. That sounds good. So here we have that. And in this, the risk ID, I probably want to call it ID. I don't really like that the entire name is stamped in the ID. Do we like a title? I think that could be a good idea to just have a small description. And what would that be? Like a varchar 100, perhaps? And then in the documents I found, you would like to have some descriptions. And one is to identify. And here we just gonna put a text field, because it might be a lot of text in here. I'm not sure about the size yet, but we can modify that as we go. And then analyze, also text 500. Then we have evaluate. So you want to describe how you evaluate the risk. Handle or mitigate. What are you doing to handle the risk? And accept. And this is a description of if you have resolved it or if you have accepted it as is. And then we could have a look at if any one of these are empty. We could have like a progression. So if accept and handle is empty, then we know that we are on the evaluation state. So that could be one way of doing that. We could also have a drop down where we select what state we're in, because we might want to skip one. But I would like to put as little data in as possible and then add later if we need it, instead of putting too much in. So I'm going to stay at accept here. And then we have this risk matrix that you can see people in the risk management business talk about, where you have the probability that something is happening. Ability. I actually want to relate this to another table, and that's why I'm not putting a value. I'm just putting an index, because we might want to define the probability in one way, and then we might want to change how we define different probabilities, and then we want them all to update at the same time. And if there is another company that want to use this system for their risk management, then they might have different configurations, and we would like to do that in a table, not in some part of the code. And then we have impact, which is the same, int 10. I've checked a few different ways of doing this, and there are some suggestions that indicate that you should have the probability and impact prior, and probability and impact post the acceptance. So we would like to have, call this prior probability and prior impact, and then after we've done some mitigation, we have probability again and impact. So these are so that we can see if what we've done actually changed the impact or the probability. Now it's also nice to have a created date. Yeah, I think a date is sufficient here. We don't need to have minutes or seconds. And what else could we have? Of course, we would like to have the user that created it, or the who is responsible for it. So who is responsible? This would probably be a ID field in the future where we can set the user, but since we don't have a login system in place yet, I'm just going to go with a string. And we might also have accept date. So when did we accept, or actually complete the acceptance route? And we might also want a closed date if the risk is eliminated completely, so that we can remove it. We would probably also want a state, which is an integer that says something about what states, like if it's closed, if it's open, if it's accepted. Not only have the dates as indicator, but I'm going to try to actually use the dates as indicator for now, so see how that goes. Index, yes. Of course, we have the ID, We probably want to be able to search by title as well. And the title does not have to be unique, so we could add it, add the ID there. And we probably want to be able to sort by the impact and probability. So we have the impact, probability, and impact. And then, of course, they can be the same values as anything else. We might actually want a calculated value here to do sorting by what, but that's also something that we might add later if we see a need for it. So I'm quite happy with this so far. Let's save this table. Now I want to create a new table, and this is the probability. And that's only going to have a label, varchar 20, and a value, which would be some kind of float, I think, decimal or float. Yeah, let's have a decimal for now. And this one is enough with the index ID, save. And then we have the last table, which is the impact. And this is also going to have a label. And a value. Decimal. Don't think we need 4 decimals here, but just to be consistent, let's put it there for now. And that's it. We actually don't want to create any relationships, because if we were to have relationships here from our risk table, since we have probability twice and impact twice, we would have to create an alias table again. And in this case, I actually want to avoid that and just have a soft link. I know that there is a link, and we will use some SQL to get the values and see how that works. We want another table. And this is the resource risk. And actually, this one should not have a delete. Okay. Resource ID and risk ID. Now, can we delete this column? Yes, we can. And we want to add an index for the resource ID and the risk ID, and one index for the risk ID with a resource ID later. There we go. And this has some relationships we need to set up. Add to resource. Resource ID. And then we want to add to risk. The risk ID to risk.id. Save. Why isn't it? I want to save this. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Okay. And now we got a database that we can work with. In the next video, we're going to set up the views. So until then, bye for now.